First of all, I want to thank everybody for participating in this webinar. I know we all have busy schedules. Had some very, very, very good feedback from this webinar over the years. So usually what we find is that people will come into it, they'll view it one time, and they'll realize there's just so much information that they'll come back again. So please feel free to sign up to view this webinar again. The other thing to keep in mind is we also do have an on-demand webinar. It covers a lot of the same information here, definitely not all of it, but a lot of the same information. And it does have AIA accreditation to it. So for any of you out there that do any kind of work with architectural specifiers or architects in general, they have the ability to get 1 LU credit for the webinar. The webinar is housed at aiaspec.com. So if there is a want, need, or desire to use that, definitely feel free to go there and utilize it. We are going to do a Q&A session here, so if you do have any questions, please feel free to type them in, send the email. If for some reason I don't get to all of them, feel free to either drop me an email or give me a call directly. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jason Spangler. I'm the flooring division manager here at Wagner. I'm responsible for not only the Rapid RH and the concrete moisture testing side of the business, but I'm also responsible for the small line of hand meters we have for testing moisture content in wood flooring and finished wood products. My direct phone number is 800-634-9961, extension 235. So again, if you have any questions after the fact, or if I don't get to your questions, feel free to give me a call. First thing I hear a lot about, or a lot of questions related to, is obviously everything we talk about depth-specific measurements. So with that, obviously I need to understand how thick the concrete is. So how do I know how thick the concrete is? First thing I tell people is you'd be surprised once your mindset is in a position where you have to understand thickness or need to find out the thickness of the concrete, how many different tells there are when you walk onto a job site. For instance, during a renovation process, a lot of times you're going to see some retrenching or some changes in plumbing. So you may have a trench or an open trench that has exposure to the thickness of the slab. Depending on, from a new construction standpoint, documents, construction documents, of course, even to a spec, things aren't going to be perfect, but at least by doing your due diligence on that, you have something to go off of. Elevated floors, you find that the penetrations that go through those floors, whether vents or plumbing or whatever they are, usually are not cut tightly to that pan decking or that structural slab. So you should be able to get some idea, if you go find one of those penetrations, what the overall thickness of that slab is. Stairwells, things along those lines will usually give you an idea of what the thickness is. Worst case scenario, there are machines out there, if you're so inclined, that will allow you to place a device on the surface of the concrete. They'll send a it's based off of what they call echo impact principles. So it's some kind of signal that goes out of the device, and it allows you to gauge a general thickness. And I say general, it's not exact, but I think the last time I checked, it was within about 1/2 inch. So positive, it's really quick from that perspective, but it does cost about, last time I checked, about $2,500 for that device. So if you're not using it a lot, obviously it's somewhat cost prohibitive. What I do find is that there are people out there that will take smaller diameter drill bits. They'll drill through the slab all the way. And again, you don't want to turn the slab into Swiss cheese, but it's something where if you do a couple of holes at either end of the building, get an idea, make sure there's no drastic variation from one end to the other. Once you've drilled the hole, a lot of times they'll take a piece of pliable wire, make a J-hook out of it, push it down through the hole. As it pushes down through, it'll spring out a little bit on the bottom, pull it up until you feel resistance. Take a Sharpie across the top of the surface of the concrete, pull it all the way out. You see the remnants of the radius in the J-hook that you put in there, and you can compare that to where you marked it on the Sharpie. So, I mean, that's definitely one way to do it. The feedback I get from that, or the kickback I get from that when I talk to people about that a little bit, is that sometimes they'll say, you know, well, what about putting a hole through the vapor retarder? Well, and again, you might be putting a hole through the vapor retarder, but I think that probably if those holes, those two holes that you put in there, are the worst that ever happened to that vapor retarder, that you probably have done fairly well. And it's that important for you to be able to understand how thick that slab is, so that you can get an accurate assessment of the relative humidity within it. When you talk about elevated slabs, one of the things that people will ask me about there is they talk about, especially if you're in pan decking, where do you place the slab, or where do you place the sensors? So you have, in pan decking, you're going to have a thin area of concrete and a thick area of concrete. So the question is, do you calculate your 40% based off the thin section or the thick section? So first of all, ASTM standard is completely silent on anything that relates specifically to pan decking. The one thing that you will find, though, is that, at least from our standpoint, we want you to identify the thickest areas. That's the thickness we want you to base your 40% calculation off of. And we want you to identify where those thickest areas are at, so that when you're placing them, that's where you're getting your readings from. A couple of ways that can be done. One, I have some people that will actually drill some holes, and they'll figure out where they're at in relationship to the pan decking or the deep section. Once they find the deep section, then they'll mark accordingly on center until they have their layout measured all the way out. Have other people that they utilize they make a device. It's about we'll say under $100 metal detector that works a lot like a stud finder. And the signal on it is strong enough that it will pick up the high points in the metal on the pan decking, but not so strong that they'll pick up the deep section. So you can put them on the concrete, move it across, pick up one high spot, move it across, pick up the other high spot. So now you have kind of like wood studs. You've been able to measure on center your metal, the high portions of the metal on the pan decking. It's not perfect. The device isn't perfect. It's not going to always hit it, depending on what the density of the concrete is. Sometimes bigger aggregate may sway it a little bit, but it does give you at least one way to go. All right, well, it doesn't look like I have any other questions. So if you come up with anything after the fact, please don't hesitate to give us a call. That's what we're here for. Again, my name is Jason Spangler. Phone number is 800-634-9961, and it's extension 235. Thanks, and have a great day.